Okay, I admit it. I take a little bit of joy in this video. You'll excuse me if I'm only human. Schadenfreude is a real thing. And oh, God, every single time with these people. Now, this isn't to poke fun at anything that has allegedly happened to this woman. Obviously, if it's true, it's just, another thing in a wave of anonymous internet posts saying horrible things about somebody that, quite frankly, I just can't believe on face value anymore unless there's like documented evidence and things like that. It's just really tough. A lot of these stories or confessions, or I don't know what you would really call them, to me, they fall somewhere between seeking attention and confirming that just some people are just terrible people. This is just the reality. I mean, it's funny to me to watch the internet react every time, somebody turns out to be a terrible boyfriend or a terrible girlfriend. They're just like clutching their pearls like, oh, heavens to Murgatroyd, I bought this person's board game. I can't believe they cheated on their wife. Look, bad people exist in the planet. People make mistakes in this world. But this particular one is interesting to me because it involves a gentleman by the name of J.R. Honeycutt, who I don't know personally, but who has had a lot of things to say about me in the past. A real tough guy, a real man's man. If you're unaware of the deep lore of the Gencon situation, I can't say much about it anymore, but the internet shall provide. Let's just say there was an incident at Gencon with another person who I'd never met before that apparently didn't like my opinions, and that ended a certain way for them. You'll have to do your own research on that. But nonetheless, J.R. Honeycutt at the time was a game designer at this event. He's a big guy in the board games world, saying, it's late, but I wanted to remind you again that punching a bad guy from WW2, which, by the way, doesn't exist, anymore, is a thing you should do. Punching Jeremy Hambly is also a thing you should do. Don't let centrists and apologists and devil's advocates lead you astray. Punch bad people. Truly a hero. And fast forward to today, and turns out the real man's man, who's a real man of conviction, he must have been dating one of the bad people from WW2, actually. It's turned out to be right in his midst, but he took care of it. This posted just a few minutes ago from Robert Burke Games. By the way, at the time, I believe, I don't know if he worked with them or what the situation is exactly. But, you have this kind of stuff. Defend bad people. Go after good community members with this company page. Stay far away. This dude stands up for bad people. Don't be pro-bad. Like, they're still standing up for this other guy. So we have Robert Burke Games. If I remember, I think here, Robert Burke Games saying, is this the official position of Restoration Games? Okay. He doesn't work. This is just a gaming person. I don't know who this person is. So I have all the receipts, of course. So J.R. Honeycutt has now been accused of some seriously messed up stuff. I must speak. As much damage as his crew has done to me, he must be considered innocent until proven guilty. Something I 100% agree with. Not the same that he would wish for me. However, it must be known that there are plenty of warning signs, as this guy is a violent thug. I confronted him at Restoration Games for a public Facebook post he made last year after an incident that I can't talk about. Make no mistake, this was not just an opinion or protected speech. It was an actual call for his followers for violence. In my estimation, it passed the Brandenburg test and qualified as a crime. This is the same post of mine that sent leftists into scorched earth campaign mode against me. I was labeled a bad guy sympathizer and even a so-and-so for refusing to blame the victim for daring to confront one of their own. I was also labeled a doxer. I was labeled and canceled for speaking up and blah, 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 blah. And while not overt, just stopped reviewing my games, all this hate was thrown at me while JR was embraced for being a champion or of virtue or, quote, standing up. They protected him, and his violence has allegedly been unleashed on an innocent woman. Don't allow them to play moral leaders now. They are culpable. Here is his original tweet. Now, here we have the tale of Victoria Man. Again, to be very clear, it's just an allegation. As vile as this dude appears to be, it's just that. Am I more inclined to believe it based on the things he said about me and other people? Yes. Doesn't make it more or less true. The first time I met JR was a brief passing at PAX. I was 20, he was 32. We said hi, we played games. After a while, we started talking about relationships and how being lonely hurts sometimes. I mentioned that what I missed most was cuddling, platonically, and talking to someone. By the way, they have a service for that in Madison, in the state where I live. You can pay somebody to snuggle with. What's happening to this world? JR proceeded to ask me if I wanted to go to my room and cuddle. I replied with, "But you're married. Is that okay within your relationship?" I was told yes. We went to my room because he claimed the people in his room wouldn't understand. All right, pump the brakes here. Now, while this does not okay literally anything that you allege happening to you, I want to be very clear. Girl, you knew what was up. You were going to your hotel room because other people wouldn't understand with a married man to snuggle. All right? Come on. You're 20, not 2. You knew the deal. We cuddled for a while and talked about life. He rubbed the inside of my thigh and tried to tickle me. I asked him what he was doing, and then he kissed me. I told him he was married, and then he told me a sob story about his fruitless marriage and that he was with a frigid woman who didn't want to be touched even casually. He told me he hadn't made whoopee in 7 years. No wonder he's so angry. Now it all makes sense. You'd think with all that virtue signaling, he would have slipped and fell into at least one. And couldn't remember the last time they kissed. I was naive. We talked and eventually he pushed me and persuaded me into hooking up with him. Okay. He's a creep. You're also creepy. You hooked up with a married guy knowingly. I don't care if he persuaded you or not. You invited him back to your hotel room to snuggle, and then you agreed to hook up with him. You're both degenerates, in my opinion. I mean, do people do it every day? Yes. I shouldn't say it. Let me walk that back. You both made clear mistakes. We'll put it that way. As I write this now, his ex-wife Amy and I are cool, and she has provided guidance for me after everything that has happened. I can't tell her story, but I have apologized to her for a lot, but mostly for not listening to her after she found out about the affair and tried to warn me about who he truly was. Often JR and I would hook. I mean, like, a lot of this is yeah. Okay, we hooked up. Fine. You had an affair. Okay, fine. 30% of marriages probably have this happen. At my first Gencon, we were sharing a room. I was being sassy about something, and he slapped me so hard, his wedding ring cut my cheek. Dude's still wearing his wedding ring. I mean, come on, girl. There are plenty of single guys at Gencon. Believe me. I was being sassy about something, blah, blah. I didn't know what had happened or why, so I started crying. He hugged me, and he told me he was very sorry. And they didn't mean to hit me. By the way, I've never, on purpose or accidentally, slapped a woman in the face. It's not something that accidentally happens. Later on, we went for food with our friend. We met up with another person. This was one of the few times I briefly met both. JR texted me during dinner that the light cut on my cheek was hot. It crushed me because he was proud of the mark he'd left on me. Didn't stop me from continuing to date him, though. After that, I told him I didn't want to hook up for the rest of the trip because I didn't feel well. He made me feel guilty. It was rare that we were alone together. He touched me while I was asleep. I woke up and told him to stop. This would become very common over time. We were together for a year and 8 months. He hired me to work for Waitress Games, the company that he is part owner of. This isn't getting, it's just a more and more of a mess at all. Again, none of her bad decisions justify anything bad that happened to her. All right? I just want to be very clear about that. Allegedly. That year, JR paid for me to go to Essen, Germany for the largest board game convention in the world. So you're just basically a side piece. Let's just be clear here, okay? You're a side piece. 2 days before we left, his now ex-wife found out we were having an affair. He told her we wouldn't be sharing a room in Germany and that he would end things. That was a lie. We stayed in the same room, and he would wake me up at 4 a.m. so he could FaceTime to her to show her he was alone. Jesus, girl. None of this, by the way, other than the slap, is really that earth-shattering. Dude who publicly tells other people to punch people whom he disagrees with, being a terrible boyfriend. Shocking. I would sit in the lobby or outside the door and wait. I worked a booth at Essen, so I didn't see him very much except for at night, which he would try to hook up with me and I would say no. He convinced me we would stay together that I could keep my job and that he wanted a divorce for us to be together. He told me this repeatedly until we left the airport for our layover from Essen to DFW, that's Dallas-Fort Worth. In the airport in Canada, he broke up with and fired me. What a hero. A true hero. I was crushed and angry. He said that we couldn't text me or call me anymore and that he wanted to take a few months to focus on his marriage. 2 weeks later, he used Waitress Games' email to message me. He told me he wanted me and wanted a divorce. He went 2 weeks. So anyway, other stuff goes on. Nothing like really crazy. But then we stayed at an offsite Airbnb. This significant was the first time that he covered my face with a pillow until I almost passed out after he touched me in my sleep. When confronted, he said he didn't remember and that he was sorry. He told me he had this problem while he's asleep and that it was a compulsion he couldn't control. Suffocating people? What? This continued to happen as time went on periodically, but I thought it was a disorder I'd never heard of. I loved him and I wanted to be understanding. He called me his manic pixie dream girl and told how much I was helping him. I was manipulated by being told I was helping someone who wasn't willing to change. Time passes, we Skype a lot and fight a lot. Blah, 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 blah. Here's one thing. We went on to Fireball Island road trip together, which was 30 days of us driving across the country together. He ignored me a lot, but I got to see what the U.S. was. We were spending a lot of time together. One day, we stopped for him to do a secret Cabal event. I'm assuming that's a video game, a board game. We checked into a hotel after I got out of the shower, and without warning, he started, doing things with me. This time was very painful, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go through the details, but clearly that's messed up, if true. We went to Geekway to the west as a couple, and I got sick. I had 102 fever. I begged him to take me back to a friend's house we stayed at. I begged him to let me go to sleep, but he wouldn't. He couldn't because he was working on playtesting. I threw up in bathrooms, and he hid in dark, quiet places. Well, why wouldn't you just take an Uber? It's messed up. Halfway to my visit, 1:00 in the morning, JR broke up with me. He was sobbing and crying. I felt numb. He didn't give me a reason other than he needed to work on himself and couldn't handle being in a relationship. Blah, 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 blah. So he's a piece of garbage. He told people after a fight I had with a boyfriend and said that boyfriend was aggressive and violent towards me, that it wasn't true. All JR knew was that I had an argument and might have needed to help pick up my stuff later. JR played the victim after our breakup, telling people how hard it was for him without letting people know that he ended it. He tried to insert himself in my life whenever he could. It was really odd. I told him I never wanted to see him again and not speak to him after he spread that story about my boyfriend being aggressive towards me and then lied to me about it. At DiceCon Tower in 2019, JR messaged my mother and asked her if she would be attending the show. My mom said no and asked why. He told her that he had something to give me. I couldn't think of anything he would need to give me, so my friend Maggie said she could get it for me. Maggie and I were at lunch when JR walked up to our table and tried to hand me a baggie full of medication that we both took, a controlled substance that can become addictive if not taken carefully. I never asked for these pills. I told him immediately that I wasn't taking them and that it was illegal and not my prescription. I was shaken up. What a bizarre... It was like, drugs? Can we get back together? He has texted me since, and I told him to leave me alone. I'm writing this for a few reasons. First and foremost, JR is a predator from my own perspective. I know that he's been getting women drunk and trying to hook up with them. Pfft, yeah, okay. Have you ever been to a bar? Sorry. I personally know of 4 other women who he's hurt through this manipulation. While him hooking up with girls, I don't know. That's spurious. The physical stuff, that's more concerning. He uses his position in the industry as a tool to lure women in. By the way, something very common in the board game world. I've seen it. There's a lot of people that do this kind of stuff in that board. The board game world is the den of degenerates. Trust me. If anyone wants to cry about me not having proof, I do. I have screenshots, emails, and pictures. My trauma isn't for your entertainment. Unless I see a reason to share, I've chosen to keep those private. See, this is the problem with all of this. Isn't it, though? You're putting this out here publicly for what? Because you're mad at him? Because you think you're protecting anybody? These are not things that you need to publish on the internet publicly. Now, am I inclined to believe that this guy was a dirtbag? Yep. I'm inclined to believe everything you said based on his prior actions and interactions with other people. But whether or not I believe it is irrelevant. It's just an interesting thing when you see people like this who are always so bold, stunning, and brave end up being complete piles of garbage. JR Honeycutt, wish you all the best, bud. Keep on being you. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.